Unite beyond boundaries. Innovate together. Joe's PANKRATION 2024. No border.
Good morning. Hi, how you doing? And well, good. Thank you to joining my session. Thank you to Jaws for having me today. And thanks to all the speakers for this wonderful 24-hour event. Who am I? I'm Alan Blockley. I'm a pre-sales solutions architect at a company called ThoughtWorks, AWS ambassador, golden jacket holder, AWS subject matter expert, and a serverless community builder as well. What I want to talk to you about today is I want to share an experience that I've had in writing something I call region compare. I want to go through the usage of generative AI in both building the product and also actually using the product as well. So we're going to go through the what is region compare, why I made it, how I made it, and then we're going to go through the generative AI bits as well. How did this start? It started by a small script. This small little script was just to get the counts of services by region. That's right. I wanted to understand the number of services that were in each unique little region in AWS. This is the output that we were generally given from that small script. This is quite ugly, and it really doesn't give me anything useful, to be honest, apart from numbers. So where did we go? We ended up with something that looked more like this, something which shows me the regions, services, and the numbers, and also the ability to be able to compare them too. I even got it to make me some little news articles as well. So we can compare up to 3 regions at a time using it. We can discover what features are in the region and announcements of the latest latest services in your region. So what is it? It's serverless. It's open source, and it's event-driven as well. But why? We wanted to identify the different services available between Sydney and Melbourne originally. We found out that the difference was pretty huge, 100 services versus 200, and this made it hard to make a lot of architectural decisions. I was asked to find the numbers, and so I gave it some thought, and then I was also asked about, how to find out the actual services difference. Then AWS Sydney Summit came up. AWS Sydney Summit is the big event here in Australia that we have yearly, and Bedrock was soon to be released. But when? So I spent some time in my hotel room writing that script that you saw at the start, and then starting to iterate upon it. Then I connected it to SNS, and then I connected it to a push notification service and got a bit carried away. Next thing you know, at 12:29 a.m. on the morning of the Sydney Summit keynote, I was alerted that Bedrock was available. I politely waited until it was announced by AWS before releasing my blog post on that one. Once I got back from the AWS Summit, I decided to take some time to make something more of it instead, like listing the services per region, like comparing the different regions as well between each other. And then because I'd created an event architecture of when service availability changed, I was able to then copy this event into a publicly readable feed as well. And so that's when I wanted to have some fun with it. That's when I started to add a little bit of generative AI. What if I could create Twitter-style posts automatically with each release? Most of the time, a service is already public, and then more than likely, it's already indexed as well. So I made the service news page to go with it. How's it built? Ultimately, it's like any other serverless architecture that you'll come across. We've got CloudFront and S3 used to host the front end, and I've kept this really, really simple. As you can tell from my slide designs, I'm not a front-end developer, but it works. API Gateway is used to interface with Lambda, which that does all the hard work. DynamoDB is used to store a bit of metadata, but not actually for the comparison data. And so the only thing in DynamoDB is actually the news that's automatically generated, and a bit of user-friendly region data as well. Incidentally, user-friendly region data is really hard to find under an API, so I decided to store it manually instead. Event bridge schedules are also used to help create the events we need. This is what runs the event-driven part of this. SNS is used to notify by email when an event's been triggered, and then SQS is used to trigger a workflow when each one of these events is fired. Parameter store is responsible for storing certain version-related checks. Think of this like a checksum. The business logic works out if there's a change, but then we log it for a second opinion. Secrets Manager stores the API keys for any non-documented features like push notifications. And last but not least, our two heroes in the mix here, Amazon Bedrock, using Claude 3 Haiku model to generate the news and the resource links. This is still a work in progress, as occasionally Claude gets a few things wrong, but currently this is being augmented with Bedrock agents. More on that later. The other thing that's quite prominent here is the usage of Amazon Q Developer. Q Developer was key and paramount in ensuring that I had a pair programmer, a second brain, somebody to help me get through some of the harder coding decisions that, sometimes I'd spend a lot of time doing. It really shortened the time down. Event-driven generative AI sounds very complex to start with. Spoiler alert, it's not. That's it. We're using the event bridge schedule to call a Lambda function, check if it's a change, and if it's changed, we then use Bedrock to generate the relevant content that we need to. That's it. It's very simple, yet it's at the heart of this application. Lessons learned in prompt engineering. When writing this, when starting to learn Bedrock, I started writing prompts like, just do this, generate me an article. And it worked. It was fine. But what I was finding is inconsistency in the output. I was finding that sometimes there'll be a hallucination. Sometimes it would throw in things like characters that couldn't be presented in HTML. It would break the Lambda function as well because it had put in a colon or a quote or a percent sign. And so I started to think more about how should I be doing prompt engineering? I had a conversation with a very nice generative AI expert, and he taught me a lot of things. He taught me that, first of all, you've got to learn how your model best accepts its inputs. Each model is different. Each one has a different way of accepting inputs and different preferences. That's right. Foundational models have preferences. Structure your input. So give it a set of rules. Give it a purpose as well in those rules. Then ask it to think. Ask it to output its rationale. And then at the end of it, make sure that you're specific and precise about what you want. In terms of the code that it takes to run Bedrock under the hood, we have the setup and initialization phase here, which is a simple Bodo 3 client. Then we have the generation of the news story example here. Again, it's a single line. And yes, I know this one is using invoke model and not converse API. But still, it's a single line call with a bit of parameterization. And then lastly, we store the news in the DynamoDB table. That's it. That is the complexity that is triggering generative AI in an application state. This is an example here of the difference in prompts that is good versus bad. On the left-hand side, as I mentioned earlier, we have a bad prompt. Write something about technology. On the right-hand side, I gave it a much better option of descriptive prompting. What are the benefits of using generative AI in this way? What we managed to do was improve engagement with our audience, automatically generating engaging and concise social media posts tailored for a broad audience, which then increases user interaction. As part of my prompt, I told Region Compare that I wanted to create a post for an audience that might be technical, but also business orientated. I was able to be more specific about the content that I was generating, which improved the engagement. Improved consistency in messaging. In this case, we've ensured that consistent messaging across multiple platforms, and we've maintained a brand style voice in all announcements. And then we've increased efficiencies as well. I don't need to do this work. Every time a new service comes out, I don't need to go and write that something's been released. It automatically goes to the page and also indexes itself so that people can find these services that are in use in their regions. The benefits to the audience or the customer is that they can improve resilience in their application by searching for services across different areas. They can accelerate global expansion of their own applications because, again, they can see which service is available when and where. And cost optimization. Not all regions are made equal. What we find is it's cheaper to use certain services in certain regions rather than having them all in one region. So you can cost optimize as well within reason. In summary, my example of region compare is just one example of generative AI becoming part of our daily lives. Generated content is out there everywhere, and it will be more prevalent because it's going to be generated automatically and it's going to present itself almost as human content, and we're not going to know the difference. Personalization is another way that generative AI is becoming part of our daily lives. You'll find that personalization technologies are heavily reliant upon generative AI. And don't think of it as artificial intelligence. Assisted intelligence is very much part of our future as well. Products like Amazon Q Developer have helped me make Region Compare, just like a pair programmer. Products like Amazon Q Business or Bedrock knowledge bases will also be very much in the future of how we handle documents in business as well, and how we refer to documents and do sourcing, even research. And then business intelligence tools are also going to become heavily assisted too. Think Amazon Q for QuickSight. You're going to be asking about your data, which then leads to my next point. Prompt engineering is going to be the new scripting language. 20 years ago, we predicted that spreadsheets would be an essential skill in our daily business lives, and they are. 10 years ago, we predicted that scripting languages like Python would be essential to business intelligence skills, and they are. Now, prompt engineering is fast becoming the new skill to learn. Learn how to naturally talk to computers to achieve a complex task. If you can do prompt engineering right, you can start getting good results out of your data, good results out of your documents as well. This is all slowly but surely becoming business as usual, rather than just a hype curve. I want to thank you for listening today. Really appreciate your time in listening about my experience with Region Compare. If you want to have a quick play with the Region Compare tool itself, the link is on the screen there, region-compare.com, and you can see what it is that I built and do a little demo for yourself. Thank you very much.